Shalom, brothers and sisters. Shalom. Giving honor and praise unto the Most High, the Creator and the Maker of heaven and earth. My name is Yeshaya Yisrael of the tribe of Dan of the nation of Israel. This particular presentation, brothers and sisters, is brought to you all in the name of love, in the name of respect, and brothers and sisters, and in the name of one who is willing for constructive criticism. I understand that everybody may not agree with the findings that a brother is going to present, such as life. Nonetheless, we want to do maybe what we can call like a part 2 to the presentation that was previously done. So in giving honor and praise unto the Most High, the Creator and the Maker of heaven and earth. Without any further ado, let us start, brothers and sisters. Deuteronomy 28:68. The matter of Anya. Shalom. Giving honor to the Creator of heaven and earth. This presentation is like a part 2 of what we discussed last week. Shalom to Zakai ben Yisrael. Shalom to my lady, Sarah Michaela Yisrael of the tribe of Judah. Brothers and sisters, in this presentation, I am going to ask you all to get your pens, your pads, your writing equipment, if you will. And let us continue. Shalom, Black Ave. Introduction to the presentation. Regarding Deuteronomy 28, we should remember that in the 64th verse, we read, from one end of the earth to the other end of the earth, the Israelites were going to be scattered. According to Rudolf Windsor in his book, From Babylon to Timbuktu, we see that one named Eldad the Danite spoke of tribes of Israel being in African places. We have discussed concerning the dispersion of the Israelites throughout Africa. We want to point out that from Libya to Gambia, there were /are Israelites. Now, for those who have been watching or who have subscribed and or watched the brother Zion Lex TV, the brother Avdi Olevia, brother I've known for quite some time now, he recently did a presentation regarding Eldad the Danite. And as pointed out inside of the book that I wrote, Eldad the Danite's findings, for whoever it may concern or who cares, that his sources were accredited by many European Jews. Now, not that we need the converts, if we will, to sit there and validate us. But for those who feel the necessity for such, the Gaon, and I want to point this out in here, the Gaon is a body of people who generally is of European Jewish people who actually confirmed the evidence of Eldad the Danite. All right? So just want to point that out. Now, when we read, brothers and sisters, want to highlight this, right? From Libya to the Gambia. Why does that become important in what we're talking about? In this channel, brothers and sisters, sometime earlier in this year, we discussed, brothers and sisters, the matter of Israelites being dispersed. Now, one of the things we point out is that since the era of Solomon, Israelites have been going into African places. It's not that hard to understand what that is being spoken of. Libya was a place that during the era of the 2nd century CE or the 2nd century AD, you had it to where they had what is referred to as the Kittos battle. And I'm going to type that in here for people who care to look this up on their own. Kittos battle. That was fought between the Roman people under Trajan and the Israelites when the Israelites wanted to get back, say, into their own land. So this is something we want to point out for edification purposes. You can research this. Now, my lady and I have been to Egypt, and this is no knock on the Kemetic community, but when you can sit there and cite historians, when you can sit there and cite secular sources and not always have to rely on your own said writings. We as Israelites was asked by the Nubians some years ago, well, can you prove anything of what you're saying outside of the Bible? There's much evidence that we can bring forth outside of the canonized scriptures. So these are things we want to point out for edification purposes. All right. Next part, the Clotilde matter. All right. Now, this here is part of the remains of a slave ship that went from Africa into the area today that we call Alabama. And we're going to point this out for edification purposes. All right. So that way there will not be any misunderstanding, because last time, which was last week, we spoke about how people want to be minimalists and try to, in their own way, attempt to deny the matter of the reality of the Atlantic slave trade. All right. So, brothers and sisters, as the saying goes, let us continue on in this particular matter, if we will. All right. Thank you. The matter with Alabama. The schooner Clotilde was the last known U.S. slave ship to bring captives from Africa to the United States, arriving at Mobile Bay in autumn 1859 on July 9, 1860, with 110 to 160 slaves. Now, July 9th, that's the summertime. The average slave ship took, brothers and sisters, a matter of 3 weeks to 3 months to get from where they was in Africa to the Western Hemisphere. Many going to the Caribbean and even more going to South America. So we can never deny about this being in 1859. One of the things to point out concerning that date, brothers and sisters, is that Thomas Jefferson had it made illegal in 1807 and then going into 1808 about the matter, brothers and sisters, about the international slave trade. Not the domestic slave trade, say from the Caribbean to the United States and from Texas to New York and say from North Carolina to Virginia. No, that was not made illegal by Thomas Jefferson. The international was made illegal. Now, one of the things I point out in the book, Thanking the Most High, the book is called From Assyria to America. And in that book, one of the things I point out is concerning the Aberdeen Act. I want to write this in here so people can look it up on their own. Aberdeen Act. That is in 1845. Then you going and looking into that, how then can anyone attempt to deny the reality of the Atlantic slave trade, as some have done, when there was acts already made in the United States, when there was acts made by Parliament, which has something to do with England? So, brothers and sisters, we want to sit there and cite our sources for reasonable purposes. Let us go on. The ship was a 2-meter schooner, 86 feet long, with a beam of 23 feet. The vessel was burned and scuttled soon after the Mobile Bay. The schooner Clotilda was the last known U.S. slave ship to bring captives from Africa to the United States, arriving in Mobile Bay in 1859 with 110 to 160 slaves. The captain on the ship was a guy named Foster. He worked for Timothy Maher, who was a wealthy shipyard owner. The ship went into the area of Mobile, Alabama, up what is called the Spanish River. Now, brothers and sisters, you can look into this by looking up the Spanish River and see where that river is at. Let us continue in this. They decided to destroy the ship's evidence of its use in slave trading. Did you know, brothers and sisters, of a man named Nathaniel Gordon? Nathaniel Gordon was a guy who had a slave ship, and because of his illegality matter with slave trading, Abraham Lincoln had him put to death. That's documented in history. So when we start talking about getting your history on and getting your studying on, these are things we're talking about. Look that up, between the matter with Nathaniel Gordon and Abraham Lincoln and what happened in the 1860s. Let's go on. They put 7 cords of lightwood in strategic places on the ship. They were set on fire. The people were taken from the Clotilde and went to another ship called the Saw. The Saw ship went up the way of the Tombigbee River. Maybe if I pronounced the wrong part of me. The annual report by the Anti-Slavery Society, 1860 to 1861, reported more Africans landed. In the very latest news, Mobile, Alabama, the San Antonio Ledger and Texan spoke of the matter of the captives brought to Alabama with 103 captives. Timothy Maher, mentioned earlier, was arrested on slave trade and then released. All right, so let's look at this right here. According to what is stated here, and we want to, all right, brothers and sisters, point this out, if we will. Let's use the pen for this. More Africans landed in Alabama. Why do we want to point that out? According to the book, they came before Columbus. No, sorry. According to the book called Before the Mayflower. That's a book written by LaRon Bennett Jr. Before the Mayflower. He stated in there that when the black people were brought over from Africa, that these black people were called Ethiopians. Did you know that the Romans, in the book that I pointed out, called From Assyria to America, which you can get online, that the Romans referred to the Israelites as Ethiopians? Did you know that the Canaanites in the Bible in Genesis 50 referred to the Israelites as Egyptians? Did you know, brothers and sisters, that on the wall of Horemheb was one of the kings of the new kingdom of Egypt? That you have Ethiopians, which is Cushites, and people of Egypt pictured on the wall, and you really can't tell the difference unless you really know what you're looking at, because they all, what you will call today, called black. What am I pointing out? That the sons of Shem and the sons of Ham were all what you would call people of color or black. It is actually the other nations that wanted to sit there and have it, oh, you quote, look Kemetic, or you quote, look Shemitic. But when they start talking about sub-Saharan Africa, brothers and sisters, they wanted to sit there and try to have that kind of thing to be cut off. Just like in the early 1900s when they created the term called what? The Middle East. We already have discussed these kind of matters. All right. Shout out to the brother Black Ave. He wrote, I'm from Dothan, Alabama. Now, I never personally, my brother, been to Alabama. I've been south. I've been to Georgia. I've been to South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, Maryland, even though many people don't say Maryland is south, and so forth and so on. But yeah, shout out to you for that. Hopefully everything is well. And anybody that was caught in the storm that happened from Arkansas and anywhere else, our prayers go out to you, brothers and sisters. All right? Let us go on in this particular case. This is from the book Black Cargoes by William Mannix. The worst episode, okay, we want to sit there and show this with. The worst episode of a life of a slave was the Middle Passage. This was the voyage from Africa to America. The conditions on the slave ships were unbearable. 200 to 400 slaves were packed like sardines in the bottom of the ships, some wet and blowing weather, having occasional the porthole to be shut and the grating to be covered. Fluxes, fevers among the Negroes ensued. The deck, that is the floor, covered with blood and mucus, which had proceeded from them in consequence of the flux, that it resembled a slaughterhouse. Numbers of the slaves having fainted there were carried upon deck, where several of them died. So, brothers and sisters, what are we pointing out? And this book was written back in the 1960s. In that same book, having been written in the 1960s, in the introduction of it, it said that from the era of the beginning of societies, all the way down to the Atlantic slave trade, and all the way down to the writing of that book in 1960s, that no human tragedy can be compared to it. What am I pointing out according to the introduction of that book called Black Cargoes, which you can get online? If that book was published in 1962 and the European Jews Holocaust ended before 1950, that means by default, the author of that book is saying that the European Holocaust with Hitler and the Jewish people cannot be compared to what happened with John Hawkins and the said African, with the people that was kidnapping people and putting them in what they call the good ship Jesus. Did you know that the good ship Jesus was the property of Queen Elizabeth, and the person who was running it was a guy named John Hawkins? John Hawkins never came to what's called today the United States. And he entered into the slave trade in 1562. So if he never came to what's called the United States of today, and John Hawkins entered the slave trade, as well as a guy named Francis Sir Drake. Look these people up. Francis Sir Drake and John Hawkins both died before the year 1600. So now when we are being told about 1619 and what happened in Jamestown, Virginia, what happened in 1619, brothers and sisters, was this. What made that Dutch man of war comfortable to bring black people from wherever they came from to Virginia as slaves? I'm asking this again. If you look up Sir Francis Drake and the slave trade, and if you look up John Hawkins, both of them died before the era of 1600 AD or 1600 CE. So now when you start talking, say, 19, 20 years later in the year 1619, right? What made those people to be comfortable to even bring black people over there, knowing that Virginia was an English/British colony since the year 1607? What made the Dutch be comfortable to go into an English colony with slaves unless they was already trading black people as slaves? That's why dating, timing, geography, people, and events is important. Let us continue on, brothers and sisters. Source material. Get the study done. Black Cargoes. Now, this is the book I just cited, right, by Daniel P. Mannix. And, brothers and sisters, this is the other book, Dreams of Africa in Alabama. All right? That book is written by Sylvian A. Diouf, D-I-O-U-F. You can get that book on Amazon. So these are things that we want to point out, brothers and sisters, for edification purposes. You have an Amazon account, so you can sit there and type in those names of the titles of the book and see it come up. So these things, they're not even really trying to sit there and hide it. You understand? So trying to sit there and hide your history that is not its best history, no, we can't do that. You can't sit there and love Hanukkah and talk about how the Maccabees went against the people of Antiochus, and then at the same time want to sit there and hide the other history that happened later on. Now, what happens sometimes with people of color, or said black people, when it comes down to talking about this subject in certain cases is this. If I can be heard, give me a 1, please. If I can be heard, give me a 1, please. What happens sometimes is this. Well, can you sit there and talk about the matter of what happened with the Indians in North America and the other peoples? I can, but that's not what this subject is. I could talk about what happened with the Japanese and the Chinese and the enslavement, but that's not what I'm talking about now. I could talk about the enslavement of the Indians in East India and the Chinese, but that's not what this subject matter is about now. I can sit there and talk about the enslavement of Africans and Africans, but that's not what we're talking about right now. And no disrespect, we're not even talking about the Exodus in the Bible at this particular juncture. My point in mentioning that is when you're presenting a case, you never, ever, ever, ever allow anybody to try to sit there and tell you what to talk about. Take their suggestion and say, I'll do a lesson on that and we can study about that later. But right now, we're discussing this. Don't let nobody sit there and try to silence you on what you're talking about because they don't want to hear it. If you don't want to hear it, do the same thing I do with other videos. Scroll right along, no disrespect intended. There's more videos on YouTube I don't watch than do watch. And it's not to sound funny or nothing like that. Most of, like, on my channel, I don't really get like over 300, 400, 500 views for most of the videos done. Most of the videos is less than 100 views. You understand? Even after a month or so. So my point in all of that, and I thank you to the people who clicked 1 for that, all right? At the same particular matter, every view ain't a good view. Did you know that YouTube is even censored? Certain things I can't say because they will sit there and try to boop boop with the channel or bloop bloop with the video. So when you find people who say, we got 8,000 views or whatever it is like that, every dollar is not a good dollar. Every view is not a good view. Look at the idiots who talk about what they've done as crimes and then they get caught because you talked about it. The feds watch YouTube as well. The ATF watch YouTube as well. Your local police department watches YouTube as well. So when you find X amount of views and a whole bunch of them, maybe all of them is not the best because you never know who's behind the computer. Nonetheless, let us continue. Source material, The Slave Trade by Hugh Thomas. Source material, The Transatlantic Slave Trade, A History Revised Edition. James A. Rawley. Brothers and sisters, I have these books that I'm citing here. The Transatlantic Slave Trade by James Rawley, as you see there on the right-hand side, is a raw book. I cited that book in the book that I wrote on Egypt, Talk and Writing. In that book talks about how Louisiana wanted to deal with Thomas Jefferson. In the book on the left-hand side, The Slave Trade by Hugh Thomas, all of these books is available on Amazon, right? In this particular book right here, The Slave Trade by Hugh Thomas, brothers and sisters, that book gets into the black people being brought to what we call North America inside of the United States before the matter with Jamestown, Virginia. The brothers Akai and Israel wrote in their praise Yah. Did you know that there is a slave record that the people's names on there before they were renamed? Abiyah, Asaya. Did you know that? That's pointed out in one of the Hebrew books that I wrote. That the people in the slave record, the ending of their names had the name Yah in it. So these things that we've been pointing out is not something that is a misunderstanding or something because we have nothing better to sit there and talk about. Let us continue on in this particular case, if we will. Written by yours truly, get them on Amazon. These books, giving thanks to the Creator, were written by me. These books are available on Amazon. One can contact me, 908-587-4841. I'm going to write my number in this here, 908-587-4841. Now, you cannot present yourself, even if you're saying you feel and you have an understanding the Most High is with you in your mission. You cannot present yourself and then hide yourself from the people. If you are Moray, that's who you are. My lady, and not to get too personal, I ain't saying she's getting on me or she gets on me, but my lady talks to me sometimes eye to eye, be like, Moray. You know what it is between brothers and sisters, men and women. You cannot present yourself as a said Moray and be part-time on it. This ain't like the job that you're doing where you hope you might get overtime when they got it. This is already built in overtime when you are Moray, when you're a teacher, when you're presenting yourself as such. When, and I say this in no dishonor or not to sound arrogant, when people in the South trust you with their children to teach them another language, when people in New York okay with you teaching their children and so forth and so on, you best be ready for a phone call. You can't be on it like I'm a Moray on the Shabbat, and then any other time I'm an Ebed for the Labanim. What am I saying? Ebed meaning servant or slave. Labanim means whites. This is a 24-hour thing. Of course, you're a human being, but you got to be prepared for any kind of question at any given moment. I remember before the internet era, how people used to call my Morim or my teachers Moray Yosef, Kohen Lewi, Kohen Mikael. May the first two I mentioned rest in peace. Kohen Malkiel, may he rest in peace. Nasi Kamul, may he rest in peace. Chisimian, may he rest in peace. So some of my teachers have already transcended and are resting with their ancestors. So what are we going to do in carrying on a baton that our teachers left? Do we sit there and let it drop? No, of course not. That's not honoring your elders. You take it, and then like David, you say, only in the law of Yah am I wiser than my teachers. You don't say it because you studied Hebrew or history that you're better than your teachers. It's the law of Yah that makes it better, just like you want your children to be more righteous than you. You don't want your children to make the same mistakes you made. You understand? David or David said, thy law makes me wiser than my teachers. Not the Lashon or the language, not the Sipura or the history, but the Torah of the Most High. If you are Moray or if you're speaking as such and you are not letting the people know why our people fell, why did the temple fall, why were we scattered from Assyria to America? It's not political. There is no way, and this is something giving a shout out to the brother Mighty Hebrew, Saul Landine. This is something that he stated. I'm paraphrasing. Something must have happened for our people to fall to these devils, knowing good and well how strong we are. There was a thing in Western Africa called a tsetse fly. They used to go there and get malaria and drop dead during the slave trade. The Europeans, they used to drop dead from malaria due to what they refer to in part as the tsetse fly, TSE fly. You can look that up, brothers and sisters, inside of this book here that we cited. This book here, the Black Cargo's book, right? That book talks about that. What am I saying? This syphilis having, herpes having, gonorrhea and concord, and smallpox having man that came out of the caves of Europe. There is no way in the world that he was able to conquer the mighty Igbo, the mighty Ashanti, the mighty Hausa, the mighty Yoruba, and the mighty Igbo, and the mighty Mandingo, unless they are the descendants of those, as it says in the scriptures, the rock gave them over. That man is too puny to even step to the sons of Shem to even come with that. Titus of Rome said that when you read in the book of Josephus. The Pharaoh in Exodus said these people are too mighty and strong for us. And stated, as before, Titus of Rome stated that. So the Romans had to do and literally go underneath ground in order to attack the Israelites, because you was not stepping to the sons of Levi, the Levites of Israel. You was not stepping to the sons of Judah, because Mary Smallwood, she wrote a book called Jews Under Roman Rule. All right. I want to type that in. Now, that's a hard book to get. Talking about bread. Jews Under Roman Rule. And I cite that book with the proper citation inside this book, From Assyria to America. In that book, Mary Smallwood pointed out that when the Roman emperors came against the Israelites, that fist fights were common. In quote, the Jews had the upper hand. I'm not even personally the biggest fan of rap. But one thing I can say is that the rapper 50 Cent, having been in Queens, he knew how to knuckle somebody down. And I'm not trying to condone violence. Did you know that? When you watch Abraham Lincoln, that movie that came out, I think it was in 2012 it came out, if I'm not mistaken. In that movie, they showed the black soldiers in the Civil War using their fists. And this is not to be racial. Do you see the European Jewish people using their fists against the Romans and winning? No. Brothers and sisters. All right? It is the sons of Judah and the sons of Levi that was able to knuckle up against the Romans. And the Romans knew that they could not go eye to eye with the sons of Israel in battle. So what the Romans did is they went underground. The guy that worked with the president, the head of the FBI, it's noted he stated that one of their biggest fears is, quote, Negro unity. All right? That's the author of that book. Who is the author of The Jews Under Roman Rule? Mary Smallwood. The dude who was running the FBI, I'm paraphrasing, he said one of the things they fear is Negro unity. Brothers and sisters, so they had to sit there and do gentrification after they sat there and tried to get the man out the house. Even in the laws of the Israelites, when you go to war, sometimes you sit there and you slay the males of a society. Well, that's the same thing that was done sadly upon us. In any war, they took the males out, take them out the house, take them out of this, take them out of that. Promote the female over the male. You know what the Pharaoh said in Exodus. If you see a child and if it's a girl, leave her alive. It's a male, slay him. The COINTELPRO had a fear of what they call the rise of the Black Messiah. So, very meticulous are we watched. Let us continue on in this case. From Assyria to America, this was written by me. You can get this book on Amazon. Deuteronomy 28, History Untold to the Masses by Vincent Hutchinson. I named that with the author name in honor of my father. May my father, biological dad, may he rest in peace. So from Assyria to America, and here from a book called Deuteronomy 28. All right, you can get either one of these books And it has the kind of info that we talked about and then some. All right. Next slide. Intermission and discussion. We have discussed on several occasions the matter of Deuteronomy 28. In the description, after this is uploaded, there will be links to watch the videos. And not wanting to be redundant, but at the same time, we want to discuss a lingual matter. The word Anya, this is translated as ship, the plural being aniot. Now, here we see, brothers and sisters, Anya, and we are going to highlight this in this way. All right. And brothers and sisters, we're going to highlight this in this way. All right. Here we see Anya highlighted there in the yellow and Aniot highlighted there in the green. Now, why does this become important? We're going to show you why. A matter with Hebrew. What people are saying is that the word Anya, meaning ship, and that Aniot, meaning ships, is shown in the singular in and plural. Singular in and plural. They who say that Anya, meaning mourning, and have no way to mean ship, we want to say that every time, as in Isaiah chapter 29 and Lamentations chapter 2, has the word Anya, it is never in a plural. Also, the word ta'aniya. So, if we were to look, and this is what something that the brother Dora Yohu Ben Dora was pointing out when we was online with this, we want to highlight something real quick, right? Inside of the light blue here. Let's look at this part here. This particular vowel you see here, and then this particular vowel that we see here, right? You would never see this word Aniya with this vowel inside of the plural. That's what the brother was pointing out. So you have what is referred to as the patak kwamat there, or pardon me, you have the kwamat hutuf, or the small or the shortened kwamat. Then you have the shortened, brothers and sisters, patak. So just looking at the blue part right there, let us now go back and look. You see the same thing here, highlighted here in the blue, and then highlighted here in the blue, if we will. All right? Okay, so the brother Yirmiyahu, Dawid, Ben Yochanan, and both are not pronounced the same. Actually, the brother is right when you really get right down into it. It's not really both said as Aniya and Aniya when you really get right down into it. Appreciate that comment, my brother. You will never see this as in Isaiah chapter 29 and in Lamentations 2, both of them with the word ta'aniya, meaning moaning and mourning. All right, M-O-A, and the word inside of the plural. You won't see that in Hebrew in the plural. So now when we talk about the aspect, brothers and sisters, in Hebrew matter, we see Aniot. We went over this last Friday night on the Shabbat on the same channel. We went over and showed it in Isaiah. We showed it in Judges. We showed it in Kings. We showed it in Deuteronomy. So these are things we want to talk about for edification purposes. All right. The word ta'aniya meaning mourning, the word aniya meaning moaning. The word aniya translated as moaning is not shown in the plural. The word ta'aniya is shown in the plural in dictionaries. So they would say there will be ta'aniyot, as in to say mournings, but that's not scriptural. Dictionaries might have that, but you don't see that inside the scriptures. So these are things we want to point out for edification purposes. Isaiah 3:26 and Isaiah 43:14. And let us get into this particular case, please, if we will. All right. Sorry about that. Oh, they're not letting me use the eraser. All righty. And her gate shall lament and mourn, and Ali Beres, she shall sit upon the ground. Where Anu wa Ablu, Patakeha, wa ni Kwata, La Aretz Teshe. Where Anu. Now, this is from the root word Ana. The word Ana means lament. Wa Ablu, Ebel, Abal. Ebel, like brothers and sisters, correct me if I'm wrong, like Abel in the Bible. All right? Patakeha. Patak means to open. So gates opening. Patakeha. We want to highlight something to show for grammar reasons. All right? This right here shows it as pointed out inside the book. Hebrew is Easy, Volume 4. That gets into the aspect of nouns. That eha, pitakeha, eha is her whatever plural. Kipoteha, her hats. Shulchanoteha, her tables. All right, so just want to point that out in that particular case. Now, let's go on. Thus saith the Lord, your Redeemer, the Holy One of Israel. For your sake I have sent to Babylon, and I will bring down all of them as fugitive, even the Chaldeans in the ships of their shouting. I was asked about this from brothers, right, concerning the matter of the meaning in that particular case, right? Now, as we pointed out before, this word here, by aniot, it's the same spelling as you see in Deuteronomy 28, verse 68. So you would have to know something about the Chaldeans in the ships. Where's Chaldea at? This is talking about their soldiers, because this is Isaiah 43, verse 14. So when you go from verse 12 to verse 16, it talks about making a way in the sea, S-E-A. So it's not too hard to figure out what the book is talking about in this particular case. All right, let's go on and read well to the next part. The matter of selling oneself. All right, and we want to, brothers and sisters, use the laser pointer in this matter. In Deuteronomy 28:68, we see that the word hit makaratem is there. Where sheep kaya mizraim ba'aniot, baderek asher amortilaka, lo tosif o lir ota, where hit makaratem sham la oibeka la abadim balish fakot wa ein kone, where hit makaratem. The word is in the hit pa'el stem. This is generally treated as the reflexive stem. In this, we see the root word makar is prefixed with the word heat. Now, we want to sit there and highlight what we're talking about, what is prefixed and so forth and so on. This here is the heat part that we see. This here is the root of the word. We want to put this, say, in like mustard yellow, right? Makar. All right. So let us understand what we're looking at for reasonable purposes. Since we see that prefix is prefixed with the word wa, we know it is the vowel consecutive. Now, brothers and sisters, this wa, we want to point out and show that, say here in the red, right? So you have heat, which is a prefix. This prefix has a prefix to it. Wa, heat makaratem. All right. This tem, we're going to also put this in red. That's simply like the suffix. Like, not that it's, I don't want to make it seem as if it means nothing, but the highlight that we want to focus on, all right, is that word makar in that heat, which is treated as the reflexive. All right. This while consecutive, this causes the past tense to be in the future and the future in the past in biblical Hebrew. Now, this is not to be arrogant. And I say this giving glory to the Most High. I was taught about this while consecutive. I am now, thank the Creator, 41 years old. I was taught about that while consecutive when I was 13, 1-3, in the year 1993. 13 years old. I was taught about that, giving thanks to the Most High. Why do I say that? Over 30 years ago, and it's not to be arrogant, the glory goes to the Creator. Over 30 years ago, I was taught about the biblical understanding of the while consecutive, where a verb is put in the past or in the future by the prefix of the word and. Because there are people out there who swear Israelites don't know Hebrew. If you don't know everybody, don't talk for everybody. Because then you wind up realizing you don't know what you're talking about. Because you're talking about people whom you don't know who you're talking about. Don't do that in English or Hebrew. Al ta'asu oto, ba'angali o ba'ibrit, beba'kosha. Don't do that in English or Hebrew, please. All right, let's go on to the next part. Let us discuss the word wahit makaratem. And they caused their sons and their daughters to pass through the fire and use divination and enchantments and gave themselves over to do that which is evil in the sight of the Most High, to provoke him. What are we saying? This portion we read here, right? And they caused their sons and their daughters to pass through the fire. That is from the book of Kings in the Bible. In the book of Kings in the Bible, it is in 2 Kings 17, right? Waya abiru et benehem, wa et benotehem ba'esh, wa yiksamu kwasamim, why naheshu, why yit makru. La asot harabe ene yohe wahe la hak iso. So what word, brothers and sisters, if we've been following along, what we want to point out, if we will, right? This word right here, wayit makru, and we're going to color code, brothers and sisters, what we're talking about. All right? This word right here. And we want to, for showing with edification purposes, pen, we want to underline kind of like this. No, I'm not making the mental net K for those who know what I'm talking about. No, I'm not doing that. I was just trying to call myself underlining here. Right? Wayit makru. Now I want to use a different color and circle certain things in particular and what we're talking about. All right, let's look at this here. Mem kaf resh. Makar. Makar means to sell. So when we look at wayit makru, this wow serves as the prefix. But we just went over here and about the while consecutive, right? Now let's go back. That yod, we want to sit there and show this. Let's go in Israel, all right? Because we want to prove what we're talking about linguistically. This yod that you see here in the green, that, brothers and sisters, serves as a aspect of a prefix, all right? Wayit. That's still the hitpa'el stem, brothers and sisters, for those who see what we're talking about. All right? That, brothers and sisters, is still the hitpa'el stem, wayit, instead of hit yit, because that yod that we're seeing here as the second letter, remember Hebrew goes from right to left? That serves as a prefix, the third person, masculine. This wow, wayit makru. That oo sound, it makes it the third person plural. Brothers and sisters, stop saying Israelites don't know Hebrew. Stop going around and bearing false witness, because that's a portion that the God of the Hebrews stated. Lo ta'ane bara erka'e shakwir. And if you make a mistake, those who know the history on this channel, I had to apologize to my lady on this channel. Don't be so full of yourself to where you don't know how to do any matter of zadaqah or righteousness but you want hatzlaka or success without giving any aspect of an apology. No kind of salika, salak, whatever, however you understand it to be. Do it. Because that is what the Most High looks for. If their uncircumcised heart be humbled, the Most High is looking at the heart of a matter. So, thanking the people who are in the room, my lady Sarah Michaela, Christopher Martin, Lizette Temple, Doriahu Bendora, Black Ave, and anyone I missed, pardon me. All right? Wayit Makru, this word spells, as pointed over, Wayit Makru, it means, and they sold themselves. Remember, the word makar means to sell. All right? The point is that the selling of oneself is, in biblical thought, the giving of yourself to another. So we want to point that out, if we will. All right? Next, we want to discuss the word kwana. Weheshib kaya mizraim ba'aniyot ba'derek asha amorti laka lo tosif o rirota. Wahit makaratim, read it makar again, sham la oibeka la abadim malish fakot wa in kwone. Another word we care to discuss is the word kwone, the word kwone. This word in verb is kwana, meaning to buy, to get, to possess. We see this here. All right, so let's go on to the next part, if we will. Exodus chapter 15, verse 16, letting the book speak for itself. All right. Terror and dread falleth upon them by the greatness of thine arm. They are still as a stone. To thy people pass over, O Yah. To thy people pass over that thou hast gotten. Tifo alehem e mata wapakad. Big do zoro aka yid mu ka'aben. Ad ya abor amka ya. Ad ya abor amzu quanita. This word quanita is what we want to focus on in this case. All right, let's go on, if we will, to the next part. And here's what we can see in this. The matter of quana and quanita. Quana we see here. This is the word quana, and it is a verb. This verb means to get, to acquire, to buy, or possess. This loosely too is translated as redeem, and you get that in the book of Nehemiah chapter 5. This word here is conjugated in the past tense, quanita. We should remember that this word is a lamed hey verb, and that the last root letter is a hey letter. So let's go back here, if we will, right? If we go back here and we look at the aspect of the word quana, we see here the word quone. This is in Deuteronomy 28, but this is also something that's been asked about us. What does that word quana, who was buying, and so forth and so on. This is why we wanted to point this out for a reasonable purpose, but it ends in the letter hey, and in the verb aspect, you know that it's then referred to as a lamed hey verb. All right, so let us go on in this particular case. All right, and Hebrew is Easy, Volume 3. The voice cry, the easiness of the qual. Hakwol, kobel, kwalut, hakwal. All right. Now you can obviously tell the letter kuf is used a lot in this book. Now this book here gets into the verbs. All right. The qual meaning the qual stem. Now this book is available online for $8 when you type in Hebrew is Easy, Volume 3. Chapter 1, Introduction. Chapter 2, the easiness of the qual. Chapter 3, the qual, regular verb, such as shamar. Chapter 4, the qual lamed aleph verb. Lamed aleph is any verb that ends with the letter aleph. Chapter 5, the qual lamed hey verb, as in the word quana, as in the word asa that we went over. Chapter 6, the qual ayin verb. Ayin verbs are any verb that has the second and the third letter as the same root letter. That is to say the word sabab. Sabab in Hebrew means to encircle, such as the word zarar. Yeah. That word zarar, zadeh resh resh. That's what's used in Leviticus 18, that you don't marry a woman and her sister to be a rival. Zarar means to contention. All right, so that's what we want to point out in that case. Chapter 7, qual lamechet verb, such as Shalach, meaning to send. That ends with the letter Ket. Chapter 8, the Lamed Ayin of the Qual stem. Lamed Ayin is words like Shama, showing its aspect in the present tense, Shome'ah. Any verb that ends with the letter Ayin. Chapter 9, the Ayin Waw of the Qual stem. The Ayin Waw verb we went over last Shabbat, as in the word Kum, meaning to rise. The Waw drops out. All right. Chapter 10, the Ayin Yod of the Qual stem. That is any word that has the Yod as the second root letter, as in the word Shir, meaning to sing. So that is discussed there. Chapter 11, the Peinun verb, the Qual Peinun verb. Any verb, brothers and sisters, that has a noon as the first letter, as in the word Nafal, meaning to fall, or Natah, meaning to plant, or Nasa, meaning, and you see that word, root word Nasa in the Ten Commandments. Lo tisa et shem, thou shalt not take. All right, so the name of. So now looking at it with that noon and the pay noon verb, it drops off in the future tense. So that's discussed in that part there in the book. Chapter 12, the Qual pay yod verb. The pay yod verb is any verb that has the yod as the first letter, such as the word yashab, which means to sit. And then lastly, the Qual pay aleph verb on page 64. That is any verb that has aleph as the first letter, as in the word akal, which means to eat. So this book here, Hebrew is Easy, Volume 3, you can get this online on Amazon for $8, and it discusses the verbs as we went over in this particular case, giving honor to the Most High. All right, let us go on, if we will, to the next part. The book on Deuteronomy 28, the table of contents, brief history of Israel, from Sumer to America, brief history of Israel, part 2, Deuteronomy 28, 15 to 68, the 12 tribe chart, extra notes on the subject of history, appendix, from Sumer to America, appendix B, Deuteronomy 28, 68 extended. That gets into the Hebrew of Mizraim, Zar, Matzor, Matzur, and so on. Bibliography and acknowledgments, because I'm going to acknowledge my teachers. Thank the Most High. Pictures relating to the chapters, page 82. So, brothers and sisters, I just want to show this. This book is available online for $20 for those who are interested in it. All right? Let's go on to the next part. An observation. I'm not going to mention who I'm talking about. I remember, and I say this in no disrespect, I was asked, did I parse the verse on Deuteronomy 28:68 in the book I wrote? Now, the book that I'm talking about that I wrote is this here. I was asked, did I parse Deuteronomy 28:68 in it? While nothing is wrong with parsing, I realized two things. One thing I realized is that the person never conversed with me longer than 30 seconds before such time. I believe, this is my belief, I believe that person was sent to ask me such a question, because I never really conversed with this person before for longer than 30 seconds online. So for you to ask me about what I did in the book, again, you're presenting yourself to the people, these things are going to happen. But it just seemed a little unusual, should I say. Also, I realized the person did not buy the book or read it. Not only is there a part in the book that analyzes the Hebrew, it also has a playlist of videos that show online what the Hebrew is saying. To they of the we want to debate mentality, I have to say, miss me with that. My lady, as she pointed out, is not a combative woman. And I have the utmost respect for her spirit. And not to get too personal, the other day, I was in not the best mood at the job or whatever. And some of the things that my lady was telling me, she's the admin on this, Sarah Michaela Yisrael of the House of Judah. Something that she told me is, I want you to come to me with a positive spirit. That hit me like a mallet. Know how to place your argument. Know how to place that energy. Let's go on to the next part. Thank you. Excerpt from the book I wrote. As the slaves came down to Fida from the inland country, they were put into a booth or prison near the beach, and when the Europeans are to receive them, they are brought onto a large plain where the ship's surgeons examine every part of every one of them, to the smallest member, men and women being stark naked. Such as are allowed, good and sound, are set on one side, marked on the breast with a red-hot iron, imprinting the mark by the French, English, or Dutch companies. The branded slaves, after this, are returned to their former booths, where they await shipment, sometimes 10 to 15 days. Then they are packed aboard the slave ships in spaces not much bigger than coffins, chained together in the dark, wet slime of the ship's bottom, choking in the stench of their own excrements. The height, sometimes between decks, was only 18 inches. 18 inches is 1.5 feet, all right? So that the unfortunate human beings could not turn around or even on their sides, the elevation being less than a breadth of their shoulders. And here they are usually chained to the decks by the neck and legs. In such a place, the sense of misery and suffocation is so great that the Negroes driven to frenzy. See why some people don't want to go over that history? But we're going to bring it out. We're going to bring this out. Brothers and sisters, Fida is the area of modern-day Ghana and Nigeria. Now, where I got this from comes from a book you can get online called The People History of the United States by Howard Zinn. This statement was made by John Barbet in the 1680s. In the 1680s. Did you know that the slave trade with the ships was rife in the 1780s? So we're talking over a good length of time of people being shipped from one place to the next. Then you had what they call the illegal era. Then you had the situation, brothers and sisters, in 1891, according to Susan Everett and her book called History of Slavery, when the Portuguese tried to sit there and destroy their records. Let's go on, if we will, to the next part. All right, thank you for that. From a book by Eric Williams, a former Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. Indeed, there is an urgent need for Negro slaves. Ships sail from these lands for Seville to purchase cloth and other merchandise. By virtue of said ransom, let ship go there and bring away as many male and female Negroes as possible, newly imported in between the ages of 15 and 18 to 20 years. They will be made to adopt our customs. Source, Alonso Zuazo, judge of Hispaniola, 16th century. So that's the 1500s. He was appealing to the court of Spain that ships be made and be brought for people to be brought as captives. Get your studying up. This thing is not a mystery. That's why I like citing the sources. Hebrew is Easy, Volume 1 and 2, available online, each for $8. All right. Hebrew is Easy, Volume 3 and 4, each of them available online, each of them $8. Hebrew is Easy, Volume 5 and 6, each of them online, available for $8. Brothers and sisters, that's me. May I be blessed, and may all of us be blessed. The woman you see next to me in the picture is my mother. May she rest in peace. She was my first mora, my first teacher. Hebrew for Couples, Volume 1. This is a book that me and my lady put out for those who are interested. This is available online for $10. Hebrew for Couples, Volume 2. This is a book me and my lady put together for those who are interested. Hebrew for Couples, Volume 3. That's a book me and my lady put out for those interested. The Hebrew for Couples book, Volume 1, 2, and 3, is available online for $10. The Hebrew is Easy books are available online for $8. Chronicles of Black Woman's Soul, In and Out of Time, by Tanya M. Westbrook, the sister Sarah Michaela Yisrael, who is the admin in this. She wrote this book here. It's a book of poetry for those who are interested. All right, so we want to point that out. You can get this book, brothers and sisters, online. All right, Chronicles of a Black Woman's Soul. I'm going to brothers and sisters, take out the time and read the table of contents, because this book is available online for those who are interested. Demoralized Black Man, Redemption Song, Demonstrative, Little Kevin, Don't Touch Me There, Negro Woman, Mother's Love, Cornbread Fed, Color of Revolution, Black Beauty, This Time Around, Misery, Feeling for You, Feeling for Me. That is the table of contents of the book, Chronicles of a Black Woman's Soul. You can get this online. Also, the aspect of getting it, brothers and sisters, you can look in the description, and the link on how to get it will be there as well. All right. So I thank the Most High for having a lady in my life who is an author and who also writes to my soul and my spirit. For those who know where I'm going and talking in that particular case, cherish when you ask the Most High for someone or something, how you treat it or her or him, depending upon your gender, shows the Most High what you think of his work. You don't want the Most High to do what many of our parents been through and not work out. You don't want the Most High to take what you say is a blessing in your life, like he did the first temple in Jerusalem and had it destroyed. You don't want, if you feel your relationship is blessed and you want it to grow and prosper, you don't mess it up, brothers and sisters. Care for it. It is a matter that the Most High has put you in. Treat it as such. Of course, this stumbles and falls. It says the righteous fall 7 times and get back up. The wicked fall and never get back up. Because when the wicked fall, perhaps they don't even care to get back up because they okay wallowing, as it says of Ephraim and Hosea, the Bible, it said that Ephraim willingly walked after filth. So we're not supposed to walk after filth, brothers and sisters. We can't do our ancestors' memory like that. So in the description, when this is uploaded, you're going to sit there and see how to get this book here. All right? The book's intended to be released next year. Hebrew for Couples, Volume 4, and Slavery 1619, the cherished date. Brothers and sisters, I thank again the Most High for having a lady in my life who, not to get in our personal business, is okay with traveling, because you got to get up and get out to get info. Travel, see the world. Our ancestors did it. We always talk about they came before Columbus. So let's be some of the first in our families to go to other places. All right. So giving honor and praise unto the Most High, the creator and the maker of heaven and earth. I can be reached at 908-587-4841. Email yyisrael22@yahoo.com. The Cash App, $FrankSon1. All right. For those who want any books, personally, from me, you can get it by Cash App, $FrankSon1. No crook over here. Nobody can sit there and say, I paid that dude Josiah and I didn't get my book. Thou shalt not steal. We're not doing that. You understand? I'm not going out, and I'm going to say it, I ain't going out like that guy Polite. You heard of Polite? For those who do know who I'm talking about, I know it's kind of a different subject. How do you sell your book for over $20 and you got over 1,000 people talking about they didn't get their book, and you sitting up there acting like you're mailing the book to people when you're using the same thing, the same video of you mailing one thing? You keep recycling that same video as if to say that you're mailing it, and people saying they paid over $20 and there's over 1,000 people saying it and they ain't get their book. No, we're not doing that. We're not doing that, brothers and sisters. No crook over here. Ain't no Polite over here. Ain't no Bernie Madoff over here. Ain't no swindler over here. We're not operating with our people like that. We already got ourselves, as it says, you shall be robbed continually. We already underpaid at the job. So why do we want to sit there and then jerk each other over? We already got people jerking us. The last thing we need to do is do it to our own selves. Because you got to keep that nose clean. The Cash App, again, is $Frankson1, FRANKSSON, the number 1 for those who are interested. The number 908-587-4841. And the email I'm going to put in here, all right, YYISRAEL, so forth. Now, and giving honor to my mother, may she rest in peace, I'm paraphrasing. I do not on these videos ask people to donate like that without saying, if you're going to give something, I want to give you something back. You should not have to pay for a free lesson. And I sit there like, thank you. And if you give a donation, I do appreciate it. But I'd rather, if somebody is going to go into the Cash App or contact me for other ways, be it Western Union or Zelle or anything like that, I'd rather not just accept the donation. I'd rather offer you something also, be it book or so forth. That's something I learned from my mother. Just don't take money. Give something too. So, with that being the case, giving honor and praise unto the Most High, the Creator and the Maker of heaven and earth. Shalom. Most High bless. Shout out to the sister Sarah Michaela, Israel. Shout out to Christopher Martin. Told out to you too. Shout out to Lizette Temple, Dorayahu Ben Dora, Yirmiyahu Dawid Ben Yochanan. Shout out to Jay Israel. Shout out to Sam Cooley. And shout out to Zakai Ben Yisrael. Most High bless you all. And shout out to Jay Israel and Black Ave. Most High bless you all, and to everybody who will subscribe to the channel. If you don't like it, put in the comments why you don't like it. I'm open to constructive criticism. Shalom. Most High bless.